Hi. Hi. I'm J. Rachel Edidin. And I think, like a lot of the people here, like a lot of the country, I'm kind of reeling right now. And I'm not quite sure what to do, but I'm sort of figuring today, I'm just going to kind of deal with today. And then tomorrow I can start organizing and planning and all of that. And so I was trying to think of things to do. Oh, this is Bella. She's probably gonna be wandering in and out. And I don't have a plan. I don't have a lot of money to throw at anything. I don't have a lot, but what I do have is a lot of picture books. And there's this great Tony Millionaire quote. It's in the live stream text right now. I don't know it off the top of my head, but the basic gist of it is that if you want kids to be revolutionaries, you got to raise them on good picture books, because they'll see those and they'll look at the world and they'll realize it's not as beautiful as their books. And they'll grow up and they'll want to change it. But they're also a really good reminder that even when things are ugly and bad the way they are right now, that we can maybe still find some beauty and hope and see those things. So I've got this great big stack of picture books next to me. Here are some of them. And I have Bear the Bear, because I figure if I'm going to do this, I should do this right. Bear has been around. Bear is roughly my age. Bear is as old as my living memory, definitely. And also a thank you to someone who's watching, who's the person who, so I am, in addition to a lot of other stuff, I'm very in love with someone who is very far away. And we started sending each other private videos. And one of the things that we did on those videos was read each other our favorite picture books. And that's sort of where the idea for this came from. And you know who you are. You are here. So I'm going to start actually with a book that person sent me, which is Lamont the Lonely Monster. This book has lift and look surprises, by the way. So we'll be careful with the illustrations. It is a Hallmark Playtime book. One of the peculiar features of the Hallmark Playtime book is they don't actually list authors on the cover. But this is written by Dean Wally. It's illustrated by Don Page. This, by the way, is Lamont. Once upon a time, there was a very lonely monster named Lamont. He was hairy and scary on the outside, like other monsters. On the inside, he was good and kind. More than anything else in the world, Lamont wanted a friend. He went from house to house looking for a friendly face, but the people inside always greeted him in the same way. After knocking on 77 doors without finding even one friend, Lamont was about to give up. But then he saw a little house that looked very friendly. So he decided to try once more. Lamont knocked softly on the door, and when it opened, he saw a little boy. Here's Lamont. And here is the little door, which opens, and there's the boy. Would you be my friend? Asked Lamont. I have a better idea, said the little boy, who was very nice and didn't want to hurt Lamont's feelings. Why don't you go over to Monster Mansion? You may find a friend there who's just right for you. Lamont thought that was a very good idea. So that very day, he went to number 13 Dreadful Drive and knocked on the door of Monster Mansion. No one answered, so Lamont pulled the door open and saw Sam, the sulky skeleton. Hello, said Lamont. I'm looking for a friend. Why bother, said Sam sulkily. I'm not about to be your friend. But you can look around Monster Mansion if you want to. Better watch out for Uriah the Heap, though. He eats monsters like you for breakfast. Here's Lamont heading to Monster Mansion. This door also opens. I'm going to tuck Bear to the side right now because this is a two-handed book. And there is Sam the sulky skeleton, who is proportionately really large for the house. But, you know, it's a Monster Mansion. Gotta make allowances. Keeping that warning in mind, Lamont the Lonely Monster began to explore. Maybe there's a friend in here, he said when he saw what looked like a hope chest. But when he opened the lid, he found A sleeping vampire. He doesn't look very friendly. Better not wake him, said Lamont as he closed the lid. I'd better watch out for Uriah the Heep. He sounds dreadful. There's Lamont. And there's the sleeping vampire who is snoring. You can see. In the next room, Lamont heard the sound of heavy breathing coming from a closet. Maybe there's a new friend trying to get out, said Lamont. But when he opened the door, there was a werewolf. Growled the werewolf. He doesn't sound very friendly to me, moaned Lamont. And he shut the door and went on his way, hoping that he wouldn't run into Uriah the Heep. Lamont, and there is the growling werewolf. My, what a lot of books, said Lamont as he went into the library. Here's an interesting one called Open Here. As Lamont pulled the book away from the shelf, a hidden panel in the bookshelf creaked open, and there stood a pair of ghosts. It's Uriah the Heep, they screamed as they disappeared. If people confuse me with that terrible fellow, said Lamont, I'll never find a friend. It's the library. And a pair of scared ghosts. Lamont walked down the hall until he came out. Lamont walked down the hall until he came to a door where a lot of smoke was seeping out. Disregarding the sign on the door, he opened it to see what was inside. Ark! Shrieked the witch. How dare you interrupt me when I'm mixing my secret potion? Sorry, dear, whimpered Lamont. I was just looking for a friend. Begone! Cried the witch, and may you meet Uriah the Heep before the day is out. He'll take care of you. That's what I'm afraid of, shuddered Lamont as he crept away. And see if I can get this door open. This one's a little reluctant. So, there we go. There's the witch. I like the bird, too. The bird's kind of great. Reminds me a little bit of the Osbic bird from Edward Gorey. I'll try one more door before I give up and go home, said Lamont as he stopped before the largest door in the house. The lonely monster should have been more careful, but he was willing to risk anything to find a friend. He reached out and threw open the door only to find Uriah the Heep. Aha! Cried the horrible Heep. It looks like I've found another victim. You guys ready to see Uriah the Heep? Just behind this door. Oh man, I actually really like that when the door opens and you can see Lamont's eyes looking through. Please, Mr. Heep, Lamont stammered. I'd make a terrible breakfast. Couldn't we be friends? Friends, cried Uriah the Heep. Friends, you and me? Friends? Well, that is why I came here, Mr. Heep. I want so much to have a friend. And at that, a great big shiny tear trickled down the cheek of Uriah the Heep. No one has ever wanted to be my friend before, he said. This is the happiest day of my horrible life. All the other creatures who were lurking in the fireplace could hardly believe their ears. Lamont and Uriah the Heep. And there's the fireplace, which is full of lurking creatures. Oh my gosh. Close up so you can see them. I guess the skeleton isn't joining in, but everyone else seems to be there. Even the vampire, who I guess has woken up. So, as the bewildered boarders at Monster Mansion looked on in amazement, Lamont the Lonely Monster and Uriah the Heep locked arms and walked into the sunshiny world and into the beginning of a beautiful friendship. The end. Yeah, that book has a lot of things in it that I think are maybe good things today. I'm going to go from there to a poem. This is the copy of this book that I had growing up. This is called The Jumblies. It's by Edward Lear. It's illustrated by Edward Gorey. And it's a kind of lovely nonsense poem, but it's beautiful and wistful and wonderful. And I'm going to show you the title page. I have it almost memorized. I could almost do it by heart. But I'm going to have to look. Also, it specifies that the drawings are for FOSS. So FOSS, wherever you are, whoever you are. I think this reading can be for you too. They went to sea in a sieve they did, in a sieve they went to sea. In spite of all their friends could say on a winter's morn, on a stormy day, in a sieve they went to sea. And when the sieve turned round and everyone cried, "You'll all be drowned," they cried aloud, "Our sieve ain't big, but we don't care a button, we don't care a fig, in a sieve we'll go to sea." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. They sailed away in a sieve they did, in a sieve they sailed so fast, with only a beautiful pea-green veil tied with a riband by way of a sail to a small tobacco pipe mast. And everyone said who saw them go, "Oh, won't they soon be upset, you know, for the sky is dark and the voyage is long, and happen what may, it's extremely wrong in a sieve to sail so fast." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. The water it soon came in, it did. The water it soon came in. So to keep them dry, they wrapped their feet in pinky paper, all folded neat, and fastened it down with a pin. And they passed the night in a crockery jar, and each of them said, "How wise we are, though the sky be dark and the voyage be long. Yet we never can think we were rash or wrong, while round in our sieve we spin." Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. And all night long they sailed away, and when the sun went down, they whistled and warbled a moony song to the echoing sound of a coppery gong in the shade of the mountains brown. Oh, Timbaloo, how happy we are when we live in a sieve and a crockery jar, and all night long in the moonlight pale we sail away with a pea-green sail in the shade of the mountains brown. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. They sailed to the western sea, they did, to a land all covered with trees. And they bought an owl and a useful cart, and a pound of rice and a cranberry tart, and a hive of silvery bees. And they bought a pig and some green jackdaws, and a lovely monkey with lollipop paws, and 40 bottles of Rainbow Ree, and no end of Stilton cheese. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. And in 20 years, they all came back, in 20 years or more, and everyone said how tall they've grown, for they've been to the lakes and the Torrible Zone and the hills of the Chankly Bore. And they drank to their health and gave them a feast of dumplings made of beautiful yeast. And everyone said, if we only live, we too will go to sea in a sieve to the hills of the Chankly Bore. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. The end. That's the Jumblies. It's one of my favorites growing up. My dad used to read it to me a lot. I have a lot of Edward Lear. Nonsense poetry was a big standby in my house. And I've got more of it in here. I might have more Edward Lear. I know I've got the Owl and the Pussycat upstairs, and I know I've got more poetry in this stack, but I think we're going to switch to prose for now. And I think specifically, we're going to read Space Case, which is another favorite. And again, the copy I had as a kid. There's a sequel to it called Merry Christmas Space Case. Yeah, it's got my name, my original name, my given name in it, in my mom's handwriting, because I brought it to school sometimes. Space Case is great. Oh, and this is by Edward Marshall with pictures by James Marshall, who you might recognize from such classics as Miss Nelson is Missing. This, though, is Space Case. It came from outer space. To have a look around. And to meet the natives, who were not especially friendly. Really, everyone seemed so uncooperative. The thing from outer space was beginning to lose heart. But then, at the corner of Maple and Elm, some interesting folks appeared. Wow, said Buddy McGee. What a great costume, said Lily. It must be that new kid from down the block, said Mary Louise. Come with us, said Buddy. Trick or treat, shouted Buddy. And a nice lady gave them all treats. I always really loved the way candy was drawn in this book. I don't know why. Real candy never looked like that, but I thought it looked really great. Soon, the thing was having a fine time. Trick-or-treating was lots of fun. When their bags were full of goodies, the kids stopped at the schoolyard to stuff themselves silly. Trick or treat, beeped the thing. There's something weird about that new kid, whispered Lily. Heading home, Buddy noticed he was being followed. For the first time, he took a look at the thing. You're not the kid from down the block, said Buddy. Trick or treat, beeped the thing. You want to spend the night at my house? Said Buddy. Which is, by the way, the appropriate way to respond to a thing from outer space that you take trick-or-treating. I mean, etiquette. Mr. McGee let them in. You'll like my room, said Buddy. Buddy's a good kid, even if there are some issues with his costume. Mrs. McGee was surprised to see the thing at the breakfast table. Or sorry, no, I skipped a page. Whoops. Okay. Sorry about that. After studying the dictionary, the thing found it easier to communicate. The location of my origin is in outer space, it beeped. I thought so, said Buddy. We'll have lots to talk about in the morning. When Buddy turned out the lights, the thing turned down its lights and lowered its antennae. It's a considerate guest. Mrs. McGee was surprised to see the thing at the breakfast table. What on earth is that? She said. It's from outer space, said Buddy. Yes, dear, said his mother. While Buddy ate his fried eggs, the thing atomized a glass of orange juice. Fantastic toys these kids have, said Mr. McGee. Are you sure you want to come to school? Asked Buddy. Unquestionably, beeped the thing. I want to observe. Everyone was too excited by Mr. Jones' reptile collection to notice the thing. Good heavens, beeped the thing. What peculiar-looking specimens? Mr. Jones has a really good reptile collection. And now, said Mr. Jones, putting away his reptiles, it's time for your space project. Uh-oh, said Buddy. I forgot to do mine. Calm down, beeped the thing. The first project was a homemade rocket. How primitive, beeped the thing. John Watson showed a model of Mars. All wrong, beefed the thing. And what do you have to show us, Buddy? Asked Mr. Jones. Before Buddy could reply, the thing proceeded to the front of the class and did some fancy mathematics at the blackboard. Said Buddy, that's my robot? Very clever indeed, said Mr. Jones. That's worth an A-. Whew, said Buddy. School was fun, beeped the thing, but I wouldn't want to do it every day. When do we go trick-or-treating? But that's only once a year, said Buddy. Oh, beeped the thing. I just remembered an appointment on Jupiter. Wait, cried Buddy. And he explained all about Christmas. Why, that's only 2 zyglots away, beeped the thing. I think I'll come back for that. It started to pick up speed. And in a flash, it was gone. Wow, said Buddy. The end. If you're noticing a theme of sort of monstrous and strange things befriending each other or being befriended, then congratulations, you've picked up a theme in a lot of my favorite picture books. But not all of them. Some of them are a little different from that. Some of them are sort of list-based. And that brings me to my very favorite picture book of all time. This is The Philharmonic Gets Dressed by Carla Cuskin, illustrated by Mark Simont. This is not the copy I grew up with. That copy got lost years ago. It was a hardcover. I loved it very much. But the pictures are the same and the words are the same, and that's the important part. And it's got my favorite opening lines of almost any book ever. And I'm going to read the text and then show you the pictures for the most part in this one, just because it's a pretty text-heavy book. It is almost Friday night. Outside, the dark is getting darker and the cold is getting colder. Inside, lights are coming on in houses and apartment buildings. And here and there, uptown and downtown and across the bridges of the city, 105 people are getting dressed to go to work. First, they get washed. There are 92 men and 13 women. Many take showers. A few take baths. 2 men and 3 women run bubble baths, and 1 man reads in the tub while the cat watches. Incidentally, you can't see her, but my cat is watching from the arm of the sofa next to me. Well, she's sort of watching. She's looking behind me because I'm sitting in her favorite chair. But anyway, 1 woman sits in the bubbles and sings. Let me see this. I'm peeking over to make sure that the pictures are all showing up on the cam. One of the great things about this is that Simon draws the same people. I don't know if they're actual representations of the actual members of the Philharmonic Orchestra, but you can follow them, follow individuals as they're getting ready, which I always love to do. When they've finished washing, they dry. They use big towels and little towels and a lot of dusting powder. All the men shave except for 3 who have beards, to trim. Then, when the 105 people are showered and bathed, shaved and toweled, dusted and dry, they put on their underwear. This, incidentally, is a book that has been challenged because of the inclusion of underwear. It's right there in the title, y'all. Philharmonic Gets Dressed. But anyway, onto the underwear. The men wear undershorts or briefs. Some of the men wear t-shirt undershirts with sleeves. Some wear undershirts without sleeves, and a few of the 92 do not wear undershirts at all. But night and the temperature are falling, and 1 thin man buttons up a suit of long-sleeved, long-legged underwear. All the men put on black socks. There are short socks and long socks and fancy silk socks that have decorations called clocks. Some of the men wear leg garters to keep the long socks from falling down around their ankles. The 13 women put on different kinds of complicated underwear. Underpants, pantyhose or stockings, petticoats or slips, and brasiers. One woman whose feet always freeze pulls on wool socks over her stockings. Ah. When all the men have their underwear on, they get into long-sleeved white shirts and button them up. Then they put on black trousers. 45 men stand up to get into their pants. 47 sit down. Each pair of pants has a shiny black stripe down the outside of each leg. The men zip zippers and button a button or two. One man has wavy black hair streaked with white like lightning. He puts on a very soft white shirt with ruffles down the front. It has special cuffs that fasten with cufflinks. This man hooks a wide black cloth belt around his waist. The belt is called a cummerbund. None of the other men wear belts with their pants. They button suspenders onto the waistlines of their pants and snap the suspenders over their shoulders. Who do you think the man with the white streaked hair is? He's someone pretty important. 8 women dress in long black skirts. They wear black tops, sweaters, or blouses. 4 women put on long black dresses, and 1 wears a black jumper over a black shirt. A few of the women put on jewelry, a necklace, earrings, but no bracelets. Bracelets would get in the way when they're working. All the men put on black bow ties. Some tie them on in front of mirrors. Some stare into space and tie them. The thin man whistles a tune as he ties his tie on. 27 men clip on ties that are already made into bows. The man with the wavy black and white hair, the ruffly shirt, and the cummerbund ties on a very big white bow tie. It looks like a white bat. No one else has a tie like his. He slips on a white vest, then a black jacket that is short in the front and long in the back, where it divides into 2 like black beetle wings. The jacket and pants are called tails. Tonight, all the other 91 men put on tuxedo jackets. These are black too, with shiny satin lapels, but they do not have that beetle wing back. When all the men and women are completely dressed in black and white, they get ready to go out. They put on overcoats, jackets or capes, boots or rubbers, mittens or gloves, some scarves, many hats, a few earmuffs. Then almost everyone picks up a case. The cases are different shapes and shades of black and brown. The man with the dark wavy hair with the white lightning in it, the ruffly shirt, cummerbund, and bow tie that looks like a white bat, picks up a very thin leather briefcase. No one else has a case like his. All the 105 men and women say goodbye. Goodbye to mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, or friends, children, dogs, birds, a cat, whoever is staying at home. Then they walk out of 105 doors into 105 streets, and there they take cabs, cars, subways, or buses to the middle of the city. The man with the black and white wavy hair wears a black coat with a velvet collar and a white silk scarf. He steps into a very long car that is waiting for him outside his apartment building. While the driver drives, the man opens his case and looks at some papers. He sings a little and hums. At 8:25 on Friday night, in the middle of the city, 104 people walk onto the big stage in Philharmonic Hall. They have left their overcoats, jackets or capes, boots or rubbers, mittens or gloves, some scarves, many hats, a few earmuffs. backstage in dark green metal lockers. They have left their cases in different shapes and shades of black and brown back there too. Now, 101 of the men and women are carrying the musical instruments that were in those cases. Three people do not carry instruments. They are the harpist who plays the harp, and the two timpanists who play the kettle drums and smaller percussion instruments, the cymbals, a gong. These instruments are too heavy to carry around. They are already on the stage. There are 102 chairs on the stage and 2 stools. Near each of these, there is a music stand with sheets of music on it. The 104 people take their seats. The double bass players sit on stools. Everyone turns to the first page of music. It is a white page covered with black lines and musical notes. 104 musicians. I'm not going to give you time to count them. The man with the black wavy hair lit with white enters. He walks to the front of the stage and steps one step up onto a box called a podium. There, he can be seen very clearly by the 104 people on the stage and by the hundreds of people in the audience. The audience applauds. The man bows. He is the conductor, the leader of the orchestra, and he holds a stick in his hand. It is called a baton, which is French for stick. The conductor raises the baton in the air. Way up on the ceiling of Philharmonic Hall, 6 chandeliers sparkle silently. The conductor brings the baton down, and the hall, which is as wide and long as a red velvet football field, fills with music. The music floats and rises. It sings and dances from violas and violins, cellos, double basses, flutes, a piccolo, bassoons, clarinets, oboes, French horns, trumpets, trombones, a tuba, a harp, drums, cymbals, chimes, and one thin silver triangle. It is 8:30 on Friday night, and the 105 men and women dressed completely in black and white have gone to work turning the black notes on white pages into a symphony. They are members of the Philharmonic Orchestra, and their work is to play beautifully. That's the end of that. I should say, if you enjoyed this book, that there is another book by the same team, the same author-illustrator team that I do not have, unfortunately, but it is called The Dallas Titans Get Ready for Bed. And you can probably figure out what's going on in there based on this and the title. Oh, what's next? What's next? What's next? Man. I've been going for a lot of classics. I have a lot of books that I grew up on here. I have a few that I didn't. And I think, man, indecision. I think I'm going to go for Commander Toad in Space. This, again, is a book that I grew up reading, that I grew up having read to me. This is not the copy I grew up with, because that copy belongs to the South Bend Public Library. My dad used to read it to me in the children's room. It's one of the first books I remember. Jane Yolen's one of the first writers whose name I knew, and I actually got to work with her a few years ago, which is really amazing, and to stay with her for a while. And she gave me a copy of this for my parents, signed to my parents, and it was really cool. So that's sort of an extra neat addition to this. The pictures in here are by Bruce Deggan. Long ships fly between the stars. Outside each porthole, worlds wink on and off. There is one ship, one mighty ship, long and green, that goes across the skies. The captain of this ship is brave and bright, bright and brave. There is no one quite like him in all the fleet. His name is Commander Toad. His ship is the Starwarts. Its mission to go where no spaceship has gone before. To find planets, to explore galaxies, to bring a little bit of Earth out to the alien stars. Commander Toad has a very fine crew. The co-pilot is Mr. Hop, who thinks deep thoughts behind his green face. Lieutenant Lily fixes engines. She loves the big machines. And young Jake Skyjumper reads the maps and plots the way from star to star. But the leader of them all is Commander Toad, brave and bright, bright and brave. What is it that now shines on the screen with a strange and shimmering light? A brand new world. Commander Toad speaks. We will land and look around this brand new world. Jake Skyjumper, you will stay on board with the others. You will stay on board. You others come with me. They get into their special suits and buckle on their special guns. Just in case, says Commander Toad. Lieutenant Lily smiles. She is the best shot in the whole crew. They step aboard the little sky skimmer that will take them from the mothership down to the planet below. Wait! It is young Jake jumping toward them. I have just checked this planet with our computer. The computer tells me the planet is made up of water. There's nowhere to land. Mr. Hop shakes his head, puts his hand against his cheek, closes his eyes, and begins to think. Lieutenant Lily stops smiling, but Commander Toad knows what to do. He runs to the ship's storeroom and takes out something big and soft and green and puts it on the floor. What is that? Asks Jake Skyjumper. A rubber lily pad, says Commander Toad. Lieutenant Lily smiles. Just the thing, she says. Mr. Hop opens his eyes. They load the lily pad and a hand pump into the skimmer, and last of all comes Commander Toad, whose name is almost always written in all caps, which is kind of a great random feature. The sky skimmer leaves the mothership. It floats down, light as milkweed fluff, noiseless as a feather in the wind. It hovers over the watery world. Lieutenant, calls out Commander Toad, drop your landing pad. You'll be a lily with a lily, ha 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 ha. He laughs at his own joke. Lieutenant Lily opens the door. She shoves out the pad. It drifts lazily down, silently down, and with a little plop, settles onto the water. Man, Commander Toad's a silly guy. Mr. Hop lets down a rope. Then Lieutenant Lily, the lightest of them all, goes down the rope. The pump is strapped to her back. She reaches the end, flips over, and holds the rope between her legs. She takes the pump from her back and starts to fill up the lily pad. Pump and pump and pump, and the lily pad is plump as a pillow. Lieutenant Lily jumps onto it and bounces up and down to test the pad. It bobs in the water and makes little waves, but it does not sink. Commander Toad sets the sky skimmer down until it fits right into the air-filled pad. Out comes Mr. Hop. He looks around. And last of all comes Commander Toad, brave and bright, bright and brave. Mr. Hop closes his eyes and thinks cool thoughts behind his green face. Lieutenant Lily, taking a rest, puts her feet over the side of the pad. But Commander Toad has no time for such fiddle-faddle and falderall. He puts a hand to his ear and listens. Then Mr. Hop and Lieutenant Lily listen too. They hear a sound, low and angry, coming up at them from far below the waves. At first, it sounds just like a hum. Then it sounds just like a buzz. Then it sounds just like a roar with teeth. "I am Deep Waiter," says the roar, "and this planet belongs to me." Bubbles burst as loud as gunshots by the side of the pad. The roar gets closer. The roar gets louder. The roar breaks up and out of the trembling waves. Deep Waiter leaps high into the air. He is black and he is white. He is dark and he is light. He is all colors. He is no colors at all, and he is very, very angry. He snaps his many teeth. He roars his awful roar. Then he flips over in the air and disappears beneath the shivering waves. And now it is silent. Too silent. The silence is fear. Into the silent fear that Deep Waiter left behind, Mr. Hop speaks. "I do not think he will be gone for long," says Mr. Hop. The other two pay attention, for Mr. Hop is seldom wrong when he has thought long and hard about something. They listen, and through the silence, again they hear the low and angry hum, buzz, roar coming up towards them. Lieutenant Lily kneels and aims her gun at the place where the roar will appear. Was a pontificating Mr. Hop. First the bubbles, then the roar break through the waves. Deep Waiter leaps up and booms through his teeth, "Mine, mine, mine!" Lieutenant Lily shoots. She hits Deep Waiter on his black skin, on his white skin, on his no color at all skin, but Deep Waiter only laughs as if the rays tickle him, and his laughter is more horrible than his roar. He lands with a splash and makes huge waves. The lily pad is tossed into the air and almost tips over. Lieutenant Lily and Mr. Hop and Commander Toad all hold on. But the sky skimmer slips off the pad and falls into the water. Slowly it sinks beneath the waves. "Oh no," cries Lieutenant Lily. "Now how will we ever leave?" Mr. Hop tries to think. He closes his eyes. Deep Waiter slims lazily on his back toward the pad, which is bobbing like a ripe apple in a pond. He snaps his teeth, and each snap makes another wave. "My gun does not work on this monster," says Lieutenant Lily. "What should we do? Think, Hop, think!" But Mr. Hop is all thought out. And now the waves are making him seasick. Deep Waiter gets closer. His roar gets closer. His teeth get closer. His breath gets closer too. The lily pad rocks and rolls. Commander Toad, brave and bright and brave, stands up at last. He spreads his legs far apart to keep himself from falling. He takes a match from his pocket. "This might do the trick," says Commander Toad. Mr. Hop opens his eyes. He sighs. "Oh, Commander," says Lieutenant Lily, "if my gun and Hop's head do not work, how can something as small as a match help?" "You keep Deep Waiter busy," Commander Toad says, "and leave the rest to me." He takes out a small candle and lights it with the match. "I always carry candles," says Commander Toad, "in case of birthdays and other emergencies." He pulls the plug on the lily pad. Air whooshes out, then slows to a gentle breeze. Commander Toad holds the candle up to the air hole. The flame flutters but does not go out. Special candles, says Commander Toad. You can blow and blow and blow some more, but they never go out. Soon, hot air begins to fill up the lily pad. Have you figured out what Commander Toad's plan is yet? Mr. Hop understands even before Lieutenant Lily. I will keep Deep Waiter busy, says Mr. Hop. I have never yet met a monster who does not like riddles. He turns and waves his hands. He catches Deep Waiter's eye. Mr. Waiter, he calls, I have a monster riddle just for you. Deep Waiter has never had his very own riddle before. He has never had anyone to ask them. He closes his mouth and listens. What is a monster's favorite ballet? Asks Mr. Hop. Deep Waiter opens his mouth again. Swamp Lake! He roars. He swims closer. Keep him busy, calls Commander Toad. He lights another candle and more hot air goes into the pad. Lieutenant Lily was once on the stage in a musical play called Warts and Peace. She starts to sing. Deep Waiter starts to sing with her. His singing is much worse than his roar. Commander Toad lights a third candle. The rubber lily pad gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It is a hot air balloon. It begins to float 1 inch, then 2 inches, then a foot above the waves. No more riddles! No more songs! Roars Deep Waiter. Lunch, here I come! And here we go, calls out Commander Toad. He puts his feet over the side and paddles quickly in the air. Lieutenant Lily and Mr. Hop do just the same. The physics here are questionable, but I think I'll allow it. The lily pad floats faster and faster up into the air. Deep Waiter watches his lunch float away. He leaps up and snaps his teeth. But he is too late. Commander Toad looks over the side of the lily pad. We came in peace, he calls into Deep Waiter's mouth. I'd like you better in pieces, Deep Waiter says. Nice chewy pieces. He snaps his teeth again, but the pad is out of reach. Just keep paddling, call Lieutenant Lily and Mr. Hop. Kick and kick some more. And the lily pad rises. The 3 space explorers look at one another. That was close, says Mr. Hop. Commander Toad agrees. But what about being brave, asks Lieutenant Lily. Bright and brave. All we did was run away. Yeah, paddling along. My cat is meowing, just having some feelings. Hi, Bella. You want to come read with me? You cannot be brave in someone's stomach, says Mr. Hop. You cannot be brave until you are first very much afraid, says Commander Toad. Well, I was certainly afraid, says Lieutenant Lily. And very, very brave, says Commander Toad. Keep kicking, says Mr. Hop. And they kick the lily pad all the way up to the mothership. Young Jake Skyjumper helps them aboard. Yes, Bella, they're going to be okay. Then the ship takes off. Brave and bright, bright and brave, Commander Toad and his crew swing starwarts into deep hopper space. Let's find some new planets, says Commander Toad. Where we won't have to be so brave, says Mr. Hop. They all laugh. Then they leapfrog across the galaxy, from star to star to star. The end. What do you think, Bella? Are you brave and bright, bright and brave? She's not very bright. She tries. Okay, she's settling down in my lap. So I think in Bella's honor, the next book is going to be Millions of Cats by Wanda Gag. This is not the book I grew up with. This is, again, not the copy I grew up with, but it is a book that I did. Once upon a time, there was a very old man and a very old woman. They lived in a nice, clean house which had flowers all around it, except where the door was. But they couldn't be happy because they were so very lonely. If only we had a cat, sighed the very old woman. A cat? Asked the very old man. Yes, a sweet little fluffy cat, said the very old woman. I will get you a cat, my dear, said the very old man. And he set out over the hills to look for one. He climbed over the sunny hills. He trudged through the cool valleys. He walked a long, long time, and at last he came to a hill which was quite covered with cats. This book is hand-lettered, which I really love. Cats here, cats there, cats and kittens everywhere, hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. Oh, cried the old man joyfully, now I can choose the prettiest cat and take it home with me. So he chose one. It was white. But just as he was about to leave, he saw another one all black and white, and it seemed just as pretty as the first. So he took this one also. But then he saw a fuzzy gray kitten way over here, which was every bit as pretty as the other, so he took it too. And now he saw one way down in a corner, which he thought was too lovely to leave. So he took this too. And just then, over here, the very old man found a kitten which was black and very beautiful. It would be a shame to leave that one, said the very old man, so he took it. And now over there he saw a cat which had brown and yellow stripes like a baby tiger. I simply must take it, cried the very old man. And he did. So it happened that every time the very old man looked up, he saw another cat which was so pretty he could not bear to leave it. And before he knew it, he had chosen them all. And so he went back over the sunny hills and down through the cool valleys to show all his pretty kittens to the very old woman. It was very funny to see those hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of cats following him. Look at all those cats. Then they came to a pond. Mew, mew, we are thirsty, cried the hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. Well, here is a great deal of water, said the very old man. Each cat took a sip of water, and the pond was gone. Mew, mew, now we are hungry, said the hundreds of cats, thousands and cats of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. There is much grass on the hills, said the very old man. Each cat ate a mouthful of grass, and not a blade was left. And then presumably they all threw up, because that's what happens when cats eat grass. And it's kind of gross to think of on the scale, so let's just continue with the book. Pretty soon, the very old woman saw them coming. My dear, she cried, what are you doing? I asked for one little cat, and what do I see? Cats here, cats there, cats and kittens everywhere. Hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats. But we can never feed them all, said the very old woman. They will eat us out of house and home. I never thought of that, said the very old man. What shall we do? The very old woman thought for a while, and then she said, I know. We will let the cats decide which one we should keep. Oh, yes, said the very old man. He called to the cats. Which one of you is the prettiest? I am. I am. No, I am. No, I am the prettiest. I am. No, I am. I am. I am, cried hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of voices. For each cat thought itself the prettiest. Isn't that right, Bella? Yeah. And they began to quarrel. They bit and scratched and clawed each other, and made such a great noise that the very old man and the very old woman ran to the house as fast as they could. They did not like such quarreling. But after a while the noise stopped, and the very old man and the very old woman peeped out of the window to see what had happened. They could not see a single cat. I think they must have eaten each other all up, said the very old woman. It's too bad. But look, said the very old man. He pointed to a bunch of high grass. In it sat one little frightened kitten. They went out and picked it up. It was thin and scraggly. Poor little kitty, said the very old woman. Dear little kitty, said the very old man, how does it happen that you were not eaten up with all those hundreds and thousands and millions and billions and trillions of cats? Oh, I'm just a very homely little cat, said the kitten. So when you asked who was the prettiest, I didn't say anything, so nobody bothered about me. They took the kitten into the house, where the very old woman gave it a warm bath and brushed its fur until it was soft and shiny. Every day they gave it plenty of milk, and soon it grew nice and plump. Oh, here it is. And it is a very pretty cat after all, said the very old woman. It is the most beautiful cat in the whole world, said the very old man. And I ought to know, for I've seen hundreds of cats, thousands of cats, millions and billions and trillions of cats, and not one was as pretty as this one. And that is the end. And I've always thought this was a really sweet story as someone with a very strong soft spot for sort of scraggly and difficult things. But it's got some kind of alarming implications too, which is that because if all of the other cats are gone, that means that kitten probably ate them all. Like that's really, if they all got eaten up and that's the one remaining cat. So they not only got the prettiest cat, but they definitely got the fiercest. So yeah, right on, I guess. Wow, we've been doing this for about an hour. I'm not really keeping track of social media or anything. I'm just reading picture books, which is nice. So I have no idea if you're enjoying this or not. I am, so I think I'm going to keep going for now. What I am going to do, though, is open a drink because my voice is starting to get a little bit scratchy and I'd like to keep going. So give me just a moment. I'm not normally much of a soda person, but if I have water out and I don't keep track of it, the cat will immediately find it and stick her head in it. And I don't really want to drink water with cat fur, and she's not interested in soda, so yeah, and I'm trying to keep my attention on the books this time, so yeah. I am making an exception. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh yeah, it would not be a picture book read aloud without some Maurice Sendak, obviously, because, well, there are a lot of reasons, and I'm going to get a little political now, and I'm going to say that I think it's especially important to look at this because Maurice Sendak was so important to so many of us growing up. And he was a gay man who came out in his 80s because he was so afraid to disappoint his family. He didn't come out until he had gone through the death of his lifelong partner without being able to grieve publicly for it. And so I kind of feel like maybe taking a moment and doing this in his memory and making those picture books that made us feel more exploratory and celebratory and loved, and hope that everyone can find that. Things are really scary right now, but there's a lot of love and there's a lot of beauty out there, and it's all worth fighting for, and we're going to keep doing that. Now, I have Where the Wild Things Are in this pile, and that's sort of the classic go-to, but it's not my favorite Maurice Sendak book. My favorite Maurice Sendak book is this one. It's Outside Over There. It's a little bit scary, so fair warning. This is Outside Over There. It's dedicated to Barbara Brooks. When Papa was away at sea, and Mama in the arbor, Ida played her wonder horn to rock the baby still, but never watched. So the goblins came. They pushed their way in and pulled baby out, leaving another, all made of ice. Poor Ida, never knowing, hugged the changeling, and she murmured, "How I love you." The ice thing just dripped and stared, and Ida, mad, knew goblins had been there. "They stole my sister away," she cried, "to be a nasty goblin's bride." Now Ida, in a hurry, snatched her mama's yellow rain cloak, tucked her horn safe in the pocket, and made a terrible mistake. She climbed backwards out her window into Outside Over There. Foolish Ida, never looking, whirling by the robbers' caves, heard at last from off the sea her sailor papa's song. If Ida, backwards in the rain, would only turn around again, she'd catch those robbers with a tune and spoil their kidnap honeymoon. So Ida tumbled right side round and found herself smack in the middle of a wedding. Oh, how those goblins hollered and kicked. Just babies like her sister. "What a hubbub," said Ida, and she charmed them. "What a hubbub," said Ida slyly. Ida sly, and she charmed them with a captivating tune. The goblins, all against their will, danced slowly first, then faster, until they couldn't breathe. "Terrible Ida," the goblin said, "we're dancing sick and must to bed." But Ida played a frenzied jig, a hornpipe that makes sailors wild beneath the ocean moon. Those goblins pranced so fierce, so fast, they quick churned into a dancing stream. Except one, who lay cozy in an eggshell, crooning and clapping as a baby should, and that was Ida's sister. Now Ida, glad, hugged baby tight, and she followed the stream that churned like a path, or that curled like a path along the broad meadow. And up the ringed round hill to her mama in the arbor with a letter from Papa. Reading, or saying, "I'll be home one day, and my brave, bright little Ida must watch the baby and her mama for her papa, who loves her always." Which is just what Ida did. The end. It's Outside Over There. Okay. So again, I've been saving this one for a while, but I have this great book that I grew up with. This is Stories for Free Children. This is, again, the copy I had this when I was a kid. I think this book's actually a little bit older than I am. And I believe it was actually published by or put together by Ms. Magazine. I may be mistaken. But it's got a book. It's got a story in it that I absolutely love. It's the first story in it. It's called X. It's by Lewis Gould. It's illustrated by Jacqueline Chwast? I'm not sure. I'm not going to do the illustrations. It's more text than anything else. But it's called X. Once upon a time, a baby named X was born. It was named X so that nobody could tell whether it was a boy or a girl. Its parents could tell, of course, but they couldn't tell anybody else. They couldn't even tell baby X, at least not until much, much later. You see, it was all part of a very important secret scientific experiment. Yes, it's spelled that way. Known officially as Project Baby X. The experiment was going to cost exactly $23 billion and 72 cents, which might seem like a lot for one baby, even if it was an important secret scientific experimental baby. But when you remember the cost of strained carrots, stuffed bunnies, booster shots, 28 shiny quarters from the Tooth Fairy, you begin to see how it adds up. Long before baby X was born, the smartest scientists had to work out the secret details of the experiment and to write the official instruction manual in secret code for baby X's parents, whoever they were. These parents had to be selected very carefully. Thousands of people volunteered to take thousands of tests with thousands of tricky questions. Almost everybody failed because it turned out almost everybody wanted a boy or a girl and not a baby X at all. Also, almost everybody thought a baby X would be more trouble than a boy or a girl. They were right, too. There were families with grandparents named Milton and Agatha who wanted a baby named Milton or Agatha instead of X, even if it was an X. There were aunts who wanted to knit tiny dresses and uncles who wanted to send tiny baseball mitts. Worst of all, there were families with other children who couldn't be trusted to keep a secret. Not if they knew the secret was worth $23 billion and 72 cents, and all you had to do was take one little peek at baby X in the bathtub to know what it was. Finally, the scientists found the Joneses, who really wanted to raise an X more than any other kind of baby, no matter how much trouble it was. The Joneses promised to take turns holding X, feeding X, and singing X to sleep. And they promised never to hire any babysitters. The scientists knew that a babysitter would probably peek at X in the bathtub, too. The day the Joneses brought their baby home, lots of friends and relatives came to see it. And the first thing they asked was what kind of a baby X was. When the Joneses said, "It's an X," nobody knew what to say. They couldn't say, "Look at her cute little dimples." On the other hand, they couldn't say, "Look at his husky little biceps." And they didn't feel right about saying just plain "kitchy coo." The relatives all felt embarrassed about having an X in the family. "People will think there's something wrong with it," they whispered. "Nonsense," said the Joneses cheerfully. "What could possibly be wrong with this perfectly adorable X?" Clearly, nothing at all was wrong. Nevertheless, the cousins who had sent a tiny football helmet would not come and visit anymore. And the neighbors who had sent a pink flowered romper suit pulled their shades down when the Joneses passed their house. The official instruction manual had warned the new parents about that this would happen, so they didn't fret about it. Besides, they were too busy learning about how to bring up baby X. Ms. and Mr. Jones had to be extra careful. If they kept bouncing it up in the air and saying how strong and active it was, they'd be treating it more like a boy than an X. But if all they did was cuddle and kiss it and tell it how sweet and dainty it was, they'd be treating it more like a girl than an X. On page 1654 of the official instruction manual, the scientists prescribed plenty of bouncing and cuddling both. X ought to be strong and sweet and active. Forget about dainty altogether. There were other problems too. Toys, for instance, and clothes. On his first shopping trip, Mr. Jones told the store clerk, "I need something for a new baby." The clerk smiled and said, "Well now, is it a boy or a girl?" It's an X, Mr. Jones said, smiling back. But the clerk got all red in the face and said huffily, In that case, I'm afraid I can't help you, sir. Mr. Jones wandered the aisles trying to find what X needed. But everything that was in sections marked boys or girls. Boys' pajamas and girls' underwear and boys' fire engines and girls' housekeeping sets. Mr. Jones went home without buying anything for X. That night, he and Ms. Jones consulted page 2326 of the official instruction manual. It said firmly, buy plenty of everything. So they bought all kinds of toys. A boy doll that made pee-pee and cried pawpaw, and a girl doll that talked in 3 languages and said, I am the president of General Motors. They bought a storybook about a brave princess who rescued a handsome prince from his tower, and another one about a sister and brother who grew up to be a baseball star and a ballet star, but you had to guess which. The head scientists of Project Baby X checked all their purchases and told them to keep up the good work. They also reminded the Joneses to see page 4629 of the manual, where it said, never make Baby X feel embarrassed or ashamed about what it wants to play with. And if X gets dirty climbing rocks, never say, nice little X's don't get dirty climbing rocks. Likewise, it said, if X falls down and cries, never say brave little X's don't cry, because of course nice little X's do get dirty, and brave little X's do cry. No matter how dirty X gets or how hard it cries, don't worry. It's all part of the experiment. Whenever the Joneses pushed Baby X's stroller in the park, smiling strangers would come over and coo, is that a boy or a girl? The Joneses would smile back and say, it's an X. The strangers would stop smiling and often snarl something nasty, as if the Joneses had something nasty to them. Once, a little girl grabbed X's shovel in the sandbox and zonked X on the head with it. Now, Tracy, the mother began to scold. Little girls mustn't hit little... And she turned to ask X, are you a little boy or a little girl, dear? Mr. Jones, who was sitting near the sandbox, held his breath and crossed his fingers. X smiled politely, even though X's head had never been zonked so hard in its life. I'm a little X, said X. You're a what? The lady exclaimed angrily. You're a little BRAT, you mean? But little girls mustn't hit little X's either, said X, retrieving the shovel with another polite smile. What good's hitting anyway? X's father finally exhaled, uncrossed his fingers, and grinned. And at their next secret Project Baby X meeting, the scientists grinned too. Baby X was doing fine. But then it was time for X to start school. The Joneses were really worried about this because school was even more full of rules for boys and girls, and there were no rules for X's. Teachers would tell boys to form a line and girls to form another line. There would be boys' games and girls' games and boys' secrets and girls' secrets. The school library would have a list of recommended books for girls and a different list for boys. There would even be a bathroom marked boys and another one marked girls. Pretty soon, boys and girls would hardly talk to each other. What would happen to poor little X? The Joneses spent weeks consulting their instruction manual. There were 249 and one-half pages of advice under first day of school. They were all summoned to an urgent extra special conference with the smart scientists of Project Baby X. The scientists had to make sure that X's mother had taught X how to throw a ball properly, and that X's father had been sure to teach X what to serve at a doll tea party. X had to know how to shoot marbles and jump rope, and most of all, what to say when the other children asked whether X was a boy or a girl. Finally, X was ready. X's teacher had promised that the class could line up alphabetically instead of forming separate lines for boys and girls. And X had permission to use the principal's bathroom because it wasn't marked anything except bathroom. But nobody could help X with the biggest problem of all, other children. Nobody in X's class had ever known an X. Nobody had ever heard grown-ups say, some of my best friends are X's. What would the other children think? Would they make X's jokes? Or would they make friends? You couldn't tell what X was by its clothes. Overalls don't even button right to left like girls' clothes or left to right like boys' clothes. And did X have a girl's short haircut or a boy's long haircut? As for the games X liked, either X played ball very well for a girl or else played house very well for a boy. The children tried to find out by asking X tricky questions like, who's your favorite sports star? X had 2 favorite sports stars, a girl jockey named Robin Smith and a boy archery champion named Robin Hood. Then they asked, "What's your favorite TV show?" And X said Lassie, which stars a girl dog played by a boy dog. When X said its favorite toy was a doll, everyone decided that X must be a girl. But then X said the doll was really a robot and that X had computerized it and that it was programmed to bake fudge and then clean up the kitchen. After X told them that, they gave up guessing what X was. All they knew was that they'd sure like to see X's doll. After school, X wanted to play with the other children. "How about shooting baskets in the gym?" X asked the girls. But all they did was make faces and giggle behind X's back. "Boy, is he weird," whispered Jim to Joe. "How about weaving some baskets in the arts and crafts room?" X asked the boys. But they all made faces and giggled behind X's back, too. "Boy, is she weird," whispered Sue to Peggy. That night, Ms. and Mr. Jotes asked X how things had gone at school. X tried to smile, but there were two big tears in its eyes. "The lessons are okay," X began. But, said Ms. Jones. "The other children hate me," X whispered. "Hate you," said Mr. Jones. X nodded, which made the two big tears roll down and splash on its overalls. Once more, the Joneses reached for their instruction manual. Under other children, it said, "What did you expect? Other children have to obey silly boy-girl rules because their parents taught them to. Lucky X, you don't have rules at all. All you have to do is be yourself. P.S. We're not saying it'll be easy." X liked being itself, but X cried a lot that night. So X's father held X tight and cried a little too. X's mother cheered them up with an exciting story about an enchanted prince called Sleeping Handsome who woke up when Princess Charming kissed him. The next morning, they all felt much better, and little X went back to school with a brave smile and a clean pair of red and white checkered overalls. There was a 7-letter word spelling bee in class that day, and a 7-lap boys relay race in the gym, and a 7-layer cake baking contest in the girls' kitchen corner. X won the spelling bee. X also won the relay race. And X almost won the baking contest, except it forgot to light the oven. Remember, nobody's perfect. One of the other children noticed something else too. He said, "X doesn't care about winning. X just thinks it's fun playing boy stuff and girl stuff." "Come to think of it," said one of the other children, "X is having twice as much fun as we are." After school that day, the girl who beat X in the baking contest gave X a big slice of her winning cake. And the boy X beat in the relay race asked X to race him home. From then on, some really funny things began to happen. Susie, who sat next to X, refused to wear pink dresses to school anymore. She wanted red and white checked overalls, just like X's. Overalls, she told her parents, were better for climbing the monkey bars. Then Jim, the class football nut, started wheeling around his little sister's doll carriage around the football field. He'd put on his entire football uniform, except for the helmet. Then he'd put the helmet in the carriage, lovingly tucked in under an old set of shoulder pads. Then he'd jog around the field, pushing the carriage and singing Rockabye Baby to his helmet. He said X did the same thing, so it must be okay. After all, X was now the team's star quarterback. Susie's parents were horrified by her behavior, and Jim's parents were worried sick about his. But the worst came when the twins, Joe and Peggy, decided to share everything. Peggy used Joe's hockey skates and his microphone and took half his newspaper route. Joe used Peggy's needlepoint kit and her cookbooks and took 2 of her 3 babysitting jobs. Peggy ran the lawnmower and Joe ran the vacuum cleaner. Their parents weren't one bit pleased with Peggy's science experiments or with Joe's terrific needlepoint pillows. They didn't care that Peggy mowed the lawn better and that Joe vacuumed the carpet better. In fact, they were furious. "It's all that little X's fault," they agreed. "X doesn't know what it is or what it's supposed to be, so X wants to mix everybody else up too." Peggy and Joe were forbidden to play with X anymore. So was Susie, and then Jim, and then all the other children. But it was too late. The other children stayed mixed up and happy and free and refused to go back the way they'd been before X. Finally, the parents held an emergency meeting to discuss the X problem. They sent a report to the principal saying that X was a bad influence and demanding immediate action. The Joneses, they said, should be forced to tell whether X was a boy or a girl, and X should be forced to behave like whichever it was. If the Joneses refused to tell, the parents said, then X must take an examination. An impartial team of experts would extract the secret. Then X would start obeying all the old rules, or else. And if X turned out to be some kind of mixed-up misfit, then X must be expelled from school immediately so that no little X's would ever come to school again. The principal was very upset. X, a bad influence, a mixed-up misfit, but X was an excellent student. X set a fine example. X was extraordinary. X was president of the student council. X had won first prize in the art show, honorable mention in the science fair, and 6 events on field day, including the potato race. Nevertheless, insisted the parents, X is a problem child. X is the biggest problem child we have ever seen. So the principal reluctantly notified X's parents, and the Joneses reported this to the Project X scientists, who referred them to page 85,769 of the instruction manual. Sooner or later, it said, X will have to be examined by an impartial team of experts. This may be the only way any of us will know for sure whether X is mixed up or everyone else is. At exactly 9 o'clock the next day, X reported to the school health office. The principal, along with a committee from the Parents Association, X's teacher, X's classmates, and Ms. and Mr. Jones waited in the hall outside. Inside, the experts had set up their famous testing machine, the Super Psychometadisco-Socioculturometer. Knew exactly how the machine worked, but everybody knew that this examination would reveal exactly what everybody wanted to know about X, but were afraid to ask. It was terribly quiet in the hall, almost spooky. They could hear very strange noises from the room. There were buzzes, and a beep or two, and several bells, and an occasional light flashed under the door. Was it an X-ray? Through it all, they could hear the experts' voices asking questions and X's voice answering answers. I wouldn't like to be in X's overalls right now, the children thought. At last, the door opened. Everyone crowded around to hear the results. X didn't look any different. X was smiling, but the impartial team of experts looked terrible. They looked as if they were crying. What happened? Everyone began shouting. Shh, said the principal. The experts are trying to speak. Wiping his eyes and clearing his throat, one expert began. In our opinion, he whispered. You could tell he must be very upset. In our opinion, young X here. Yes, yes, shouted a parent. Young X, said the other expert, frowning, is just about the least mixed-up child we've ever examined, exclaimed the two experts together. Behind the closed doors, the super medico-socio-culturometer made a noise like a contented hum. Yay for X, yelled one of the children. And then the others began yelling too, clapping and cheering and jumping up and down. Shh, shushed the principal. But nobody did. The parents' committee was angry and bewildered. How could X have passed the whole examination? Didn't X have an identity problem? Wasn't X mixed up at all? Wasn't X any kind of a misfit? How could it not be when it didn't even know what it was? Don't you see? Asked the experts. X isn't one mixed up at all. Isn't one bit mixed up. As for being a misfit, ridiculous. X knows perfectly well what it is. Don't you, X? The experts winked. X winked back. But what is X? Shrieked Peggy and Joe's parents. We still want to know what it is. Ah, yes, said the experts, winking again. Well, don't worry. You'll all know one of these days, and you won't need us to tell you. What? What do you mean? Jim's parents grumbled suspiciously. Susie and Peggy and Joe all answered at once. They mean that by the time it matters which sex X is, it won't be a secret anymore. With that, the experts reached out to hug Ms. and Mr. Jones. If we ever have an X of our own, they whispered, we sure hope you'll lend us your instruction manual. Needless to say, the Joneses were very happy. The Project Baby X scientists were rather pleased too. So were Susie, Jim, Peggy, Joe, and all the other children. Even the parents promised not to make any trouble. Later that day, all X's friends put on their red and white checkered overalls and went over to see X. They found X in the backyard, playing with a very tiny baby that none of them had ever seen before. The baby was wearing very tiny red and white checked overalls. "How do you like our new baby?" X asked the other children proudly. "It's got cute dimples," said Jim. "It's got husky biceps too," said Susie. "What kind of baby is it?" asked Joe and Peggy. X frowned at them. "Can't you tell?" Then X broke into a big, mischievous grin. "It's a Y!" So some of the ideas in that are a little dated, but it's an older story. When was this book published? Checking the Indicia right now. It was published in 1982, so it's exactly as old as I am. And for, 34 years ago, it's doing pretty well. So yeah, that was one of my bedtime stories growing up, which I always thought was pretty rad. What else have I got here? Let's see. Oh man, I think I'm starting to lose my voice. I might have to take a break pretty soon. Quick reading break, actually, because I want to show off something that I've had sitting around today. I was at NorwestCon a couple years ago and I was having a really rough time, and I tweeted something about it. And at one of my panels the next morning, someone came up and gave me this. It's the Self-Care Siege Perilous. And they told me that it's for when you absolutely need to be somewhere else or someone else. Just sort of always having that gateway, because that's the deal with the Siege Perilous from X-Men. And I don't know, I've had it ever since. It lives in my computer case. It's a good comfort object because of what it represents, but even more because someone I'd never met before got that and made it and gave it to me. And it meant a lot. And it's a good reminder that that happens. So yeah, yeah. Okay, next book. Let's see. We haven't done poetry in a while. So this is another one. This is my original copy. My mom's handwriting again. This is A Visit to William Blake's Inn. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read some of the poems. It's a collection of poetry by Nancy Willard. It's illustrated by Alison Martin Prevenson. And it's written from the idea of William Blake as an innkeeper and all of the people and creatures from his poems as guests at his inn. And they're wonderful. They're all wonderful. So it's A Visit to William Blake's Inn, Poems for Innocent and Experienced Travelers. And again, by Nancy Willard, illustrated by Alison Martin Prevenson, who we're going to come back to later today because there's a book that I'm saving. It's one of my, all of these are among my favorites, but a really special one that I'm saving that they wrote and illustrated. So I'm going to read the introduction and then some of the poems. And here's the illustration that goes with the introduction, this splendid tiger. I was 7 and starting my second week in bed with the measles when I made the acquaintance of William Blake. "Tell me a story about lions and tigers," I said to the babysitter. Although it was nearly 9 o'clock, I had no desire to sleep. Miss Pratt, the sitter, looked up at the ceiling, on which my father had glued stars that glowed in the dark. Then she said very softly a poem that began, "Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye can frame thy fearful symmetry?" "Did you make that up?" I asked, astonished. "No," said Miss Pratt. "William Blake made it up." "Does he live close by?" "He died nearly 200 years ago," said Miss Pratt. "Lights off, I'm going downstairs." 2 days later, there arrived in the mail a little book with wonderful pictures, songs of innocence and songs of experience by William Blake. I am almost sure Miss Pratt sent it. I say almost because on the title page in flourishing script was the following inscription: "Poetry is the best medicine. Best wishes for a speedy recovery. Yours, William Blake." And so, the first poem is William Blake's Inn for Innocent and Experienced Travelers. I'm going to show you the picture first. "This inn belongs to William Blake, and many are the beasts he's tamed, and many are the stars he's named, and many those who stop and take their joyful rest with William Blake. Two mighty dragons brew and bake, and many are the loaves they've burned, and many are the spits they've turned, and many those who stop and bake their joyful bread with William Blake. Two patient angels wash and shake his feather beds, and far away snow falls like feathers. That's the day good children run outside and make snowmen to honor William Blake. This is Blake's wonderful car, delivers us wonderfully well. Those of you who clicked over from the X-Men Twitter feed may be familiar with this one already from the tag to 1 week of video reviews when I recited it instead of coming up with something funny. The driver bowed and took my things. He wore a Macintosh and wings. He wore a Macintosh and boots the tender green of onion shoots, and on his cap in dappled green was Blake's celestial limousine. My suitcases began to purr. Your luggage is excessive, sir. All luggage must be carried flat and worn discreetly on your hat or served with mustard on a bun. Alarmed, I said I hadn't one. My suitcases, my fondest hopes, grew small and pale as envelopes. Now all aboard and all at ease, I only carry whom I please. Uneasily I stepped inside and found the seats so green and wide, the grass so soft, the view so far, it scarcely could be called a car. Rather a wish that only flew when I climbed in and found it true. Maybe I will just go through the whole book. We'll see. This one is called A Rabbit Reveals My Room. When the rabbit showed me my room, I looked all around for a bed. I saw nothing there but a shaggy old bear who offered to pillow my head. I was hoping for blankets, I whispered. At home I have an afghan and sheet. You will find my fur soft as the hay in your loft, and my paws make an admirable seat. I was hoping to waken at sunrise. At home I've an excellent clock, a lamp and a glass through which the hours pass, and what shall I do for a lock? I will keep you from perilous starlight and the old moon's lunatic cat. When I blow on your eyes, you will see the sunrise with the man in the marmalade hat. So, let's see. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I think I'm going to do, well, I'm just flipping through trying to find my very favorite things. All right. The Wise Cow Enjoys a Cloud. This is going to be the last one that we do, because I love this illustration so very much. And it's just nice. And yes. Where did you sleep last night, wise cow? Where did you lay your head? I caught my horns on a rolling cloud and made myself a bed, and in the morning ate it raw on freshly buttered bread. So those are from A Visit to William Blake's Inn by Nancy Willard, with art by Allison Martin Provenson. And actually, while we've got the Provensons on our mind, I think I'm going to go straight to our animal friends at Maple Hill Farm. And again, this is my very old copy. When did this come out? 1974. This is technically the 12th printing, so probably actually hit the shelf sometime before that. You can tell what printing a book is on, by the way. There will be this little list of numbers. And the first printing has 1 on it, and they take a number off every time they go through. So the printing you're on is the lowest number on that list. This is by Allison Martin Provenson. There are multiple Maple Hill Farm books. This is the first, and it's my favorite. Who lives at Maple Hill Farm? People live here. 2 dogs and 5 horses live here. A pig lives here. Then there are some geese, lots of chickens, a few cows, a few goats, several sheep, and 4 special cats. And I have to do the illustrations separately from the text in this one. I'm going to try when there's stuff that goes together, but it's a really big book, and getting it at the right angle is going to be hard. Cat nap. Here are the 4 cats curled up together. Actually, maybe I can stand up and do it like this. The 4 special cats sleep together in the chimney corner where it is warm. When they are awake, it is easier to tell them apart. Eggnog is a Siamese cat. She is very old and she is never warm enough. Eggnog has a sweet nature, though she throws up a lot and hates to go outdoors. She is cross-eyed and has a lumpy tail. Willow is Eggnog's niece. Her father's name was Potato Who Disappeared. Willow has beautiful eyes and an elegant tail, but she is not interesting. She doesn't like to play. She doesn't like to fight. Gooseberry was named for the color of her eyes. She was a playful kitten who grew up to be a good gray cat. Now she has kittens of her own to play with. And then there is the best page turner reveal ever. Max. Max is Gooseberry's son. Max is big. He is still very young. He has a tiny high voice, and he likes cottage cheese. Max and Gooseberry are always spitting at each other, as you will see. But Max likes children, and he likes to play. Max can be scratchy. You have to be careful when you play with him. He is not very clever with his claws. Max is clever enough to catch mice and rabbits and squirrels. It is not a pretty sight. He leaves gifts of guts and tails and chipmunk heads on the doorstep. Not a pretty sight either. But then, no cats are vegetarians. It's not in their nature. Just a moment. Here we go. See, this is why it's hard to read this book and show the pictures at the same time. This is what the cats are doing at any given day. Gooseberry and Max are spitting at each other. Eggnog is using the cat pen. Max is teasing a chipmunk. It's not a pretty sight. Eggnog is eating an umbrella plant. Willow is not interested in umbrella plants. Gooseberry is moving a kitten from one place to another. Gooseberry is nursing her kittens. She is a good mother to them. Max is pretending to be asleep. He won't hurt the hen. She is too big. Willow is not interested in chickens. Gooseberry and Max are spitting at each other. Willow is washing, though she is never dirty. Eggnog is looking out the window. Max hates snakes. Gooseberry is washing a kitten. Max is hiding in the garden. Willow is sitting still. Max is watching a bird. Gooseberry is drinking milk. Eggnog is exploring a brown paper bag. Willow is sitting still. Gooseberry is moving a kitten from one place to another. Max is tangling with a ball of yarn. Eggnog is using the cat pan. Willow is very beautiful, but she is not very interesting. The chickens are interesting. There are hens who lay eggs, and there are roosters who have long tails and crow. This nice big brown chicken is called Good Old Little Red Hen. There are many more brown hens like her. There is only one polka dot hen. She is named Other Hen. This little black hen is called Sweetie. There are many more black hens like her. Here is a brown egg. Here is a white egg. Both eggs are good. This rooster is named Lovelace. This rooster is named Polynegri. This big rooster is named Big Shot. He doesn't like children. Now we've got another page of what they're all doing. Big Shot is fighting with Polynegri. Sweetie lays brown eggs, but she doesn't like to sit on them. Other hen lays white eggs. She doesn't like to sit on eggs either. Good old little red hen is too old to lay eggs, but she loves to sit on other hens' eggs. Polynegri has found a good pink worm. All the hens come running to share it. Hold on just a second. Hey, I'm live streaming picture books. Yeah. Miles just got home, so he's probably going to be walking through the background, but we're going to keep going with the chickens, okay? Let's see. Where were we? Polynegri has found a good pink worm. All the hens come running to share it. Big Shot is fighting with Lovelace. Other hen is taking a dust bath. Good old little red hen is asleep on a nest of eggs. All the other chickens are asleep in the chicken coop. all but Big Shot, who sleeps in the trees. Sweetie and other hen are taking a sunbath. Good old little red hen is sitting on eggs. Lovelace has scratched up a batch of good ants. All the hens come running to share them. Big Shot won't let the hens have any corn. Big Shot is picking on Sweetie. A fox is carrying Big Shot away. Good old little red hen has 11 baby chicks. She is a good mother to them. Lovelace and Polinegri are crowing. Doggerel. Here are the 2 dogs who live on the farm. They are very special dogs. Muffin is 9 months old. She is big for her age and may grow even bigger. Now she weighs 41 pounds. Muffin has many pet names. Sometimes she is called Ragamuffin, sometimes Mafia, and other times Beastly, Gorilla, or Fiend. No one knows what kind of dog she is. Dinah is 13 years old. Dinah is small for her age, but no one expected her to grow any larger. She is that kind of dog. She stopped growing long ago. Dinah has nicknames too. Hers are Dine, Diner, Nosy Parker, and Little Sister. Sorry, I was figuring out noise and stuff. Let's see. How to weigh a dog. That's good advice. Hold the dog in your arms. Step on the scale. See how much you weigh together. Let the dog go. Step on the scale and see how much you weigh alone. Subtract the small number from the large number. The answer is what the dog weighs. Cats can be weighed this way too. So can a horse if your scale is strong enough, and if you can lift a horse. Dinah is crazy about stones. She carries stones from one place to another. It is hard to understand how she can carry them since she has so few teeth left. Dinah doesn't like anyone to see where she puts the stones. Perhaps she is building something. She is doing her work. Muffin doesn't do any work. She picks up big sticks, hoping to tempt someone to play with her. Dogs like to play. Dog games. Both Dinah and Muffin like to play ball, but they don't play the same way. When you throw a ball for them, Dinah finds it by smelling where it went. Muffin has to see where it went. If Dinah gets the ball first, she brings it back, hoping you will throw it again. If Muffin gets the ball, she runs away with it, hoping you will chase her. When there's no one to play with, dogs sometimes get bored. When Dinah is bored, she curls up and goes to sleep. When Muffin is bored, she chews up pillows, barks at geese, teases Max, and chases horses. A very dangerous game. Horseplay. Ibn Rafferty is chasing Ichabod. Chaos is chasing Ichabod. They don't mean anything by it. It's just that everybody chases Ichabod. Everybody except Comanche, who likes Ichabod, and Lucky, who is fat, lazy, and good-natured, and thinks only about eating. Ibn is sly. Chaos is grumpy. Lucky eats too much. Comanche runs away, and Ichabod chews up fences. Oh well, no horse is perfect, but they are fun to know. Ibn Rafferty is called Gray, but he's really a white horse. Ibn's nickname is Big White Pill. Ibn is almost impossible to catch, and you can never catch him by running after him. If you stand very quietly and for a long while, Ibn will come to you and let you put a bridle on him. He teaches you to be patient, but sometimes you can't help wishing he were different. Once, Ibn stepped on a nail and had to keep his foot wrapped in a hot bandage inside a big plastic bag with a gunny sack tied around. He was very quiet and friendly then. He knew he had been hurt. After Ibn has been brushed and combed and curried and looks good and clean and beautiful, he rolls in the mud. It is very funny to see a horse rolling in the mud. It makes you laugh, even though all your hard work has been wasted. The good thing about Ibn is that he is fun to ride. He never plays any tricks when he is out for a ride. Chaos is crazy about Lucky. Chaos is old now and cranky, but he will still jump a fence in the spring when he is feeling cheerful and spry. The best thing about Chaos is that he likes people. He doesn't mind if people come close. He is easy to catch. Lucky is crazy about carrots and corn, sugar and apples and children. She lets children comb her and brush her and pick up her feet. Lucky lets children walk around her and under her. She lets them sit on her. Lucky stands very quietly when children are near. Hold your hand flat when you feed a pony, or the pony may pinch your fingers by mistake. It is best to wear shoes when you are around a horse or a pony. They would hurt your bare toes if they happened to step on them. Lucky loves to swim in the pond. You can go with her if you know how to swim too, and don't mind getting her clothes wet. Lucky will take you for a ride, but when she gets tired, she lets you know it. She will roll over. Be quick and get out of the way, or she will roll on you, and she weighs 600 pounds. Lucky is a small pony, but she is fat. But then, no pony is perfect. Ichabod and Comanche are very sure-footed, and they love to gallop. The horses are big, they are shy and easily frightened. You have to be careful to hang on. They're afraid of silly things like unexpected pieces of paper, and sometimes they want their own way and take you home before you're ready to go. Everybody loves horses, except some people who are afraid of them. Oh well, no people are perfect. The geese are nearly perfect. At least they act that way. They are strong and healthy. They never catch a cold, and they live to be 100. Geese eat grass and weeds and hay and corn and almost anything else that is good to eat. This goose is a gander. His name is Evil Murdoch. Geese have wonderful eyesight. They can see a bird or a plane a half-mile away. Geese like horses. Geese have keen ears. They can hear the family car on its way home, and they gabble to greet it. Because they are so noisy, geese make good watchdogs. They can even scare a fox away. Geese are good swimmers and good mothers and fathers. The only trouble with geese is geese have bad tempers. They are greedy. They are grabby. They are grouchy. They grumble, they gabble, they grunch, and they grabble, and they pinch. Farm geese can't fly, but when they see wild geese migrating, they start to walk after them and have to be brought home again. Then they bully the dogs, complain to the cats, and pinch the sheep's heels. That's the trouble with geese, who otherwise are nearly perfect. The sheep are silly. They are so silly the geese can hardly be blamed for wanting to pinch them. Still, there's something sweet about sheep, even if they aren't clever. This sheep has a black face. This sheep has a white face. This sheep has a white face and horns. They are all ewes. This sheep has a white face and horns and is a ram. Almost all sheep's wool is supposed to be white. Most of the time their wool is gray and full of thistles and burrs and straw and mud and dirt and flowers. Almost all sheep look very much alike and do very much the same things, and they do the same things at the same time and all together. Sheep eat together. Sheep sleep together. When they are lost, sheep bleat together. All but one. Old 11 doesn't really need an earring for you to tell her from the other sheep. She is smarter. Old 11 can always find her way home, and the other sheep follow her. She always knows where the gate is, and the other sheep follow her through it. Old 11 is the best sheep, and the best thing about her is that in the spring, when she has lambs, she always has twin lambs. The best thing about sheep is twin baby lambs. Baby lambs are pretty and full of fun. They run together. They jump together. They play king of the mountain together. Old 11 takes good care of her twin lambs. She is a good mother to them. She keeps them clean even when her own wool is full of flowers. The only trouble with baby lambs is they grow up so quickly and become sheep. Whiny is one of the twin lambs who has grown up. She didn't inherit her mother's brains. She is always lost and never knows where the gate is. Let me see if I can differ on the other side of this. Yeah, that works. Okay. Whiny is never sure where her own lambs are. This confuses her and makes her cry. She can't tell a good blade of grass from a poison weed, so she is often sick. She faints from fear when her wool is being shorn. Whiny kind of reminds me of my cat. But Whiny has a good friend who likes her and looks after her, a billy goat named Sam. Sam is not afraid of anything. He knows how to stand and face a dog or a goose who tries to tease him. Because Sam doesn't run away, they always stop teasing. Sam's also got a great little goat smile. Look at that. Such a good face. Sam can pull a cart full of children when he wants to. Once in a while, Sam gets tired of being in his field and butts his way out. This makes everyone angry. Not only does the fence have to be repaired, but when Sam is free, he eats the roses. In Sam's defense, they're probably delicious. Nanny goats are just as clever as billy goats, but they are not nearly so cranky. They have beards too. Goat deer is a white goat. She is very gentle and likes people. Ma is brown. Whiny likes Ma and goat deer too. Goat deer gives you her milk, except when she has kids of her own. Goat deer likes kids and children. She seems to smile at them. Kids are lively and full of fun. They run together, they jump together, and they play king of the mountain too. Kids don't have to butt their way out of fields. They can jump over almost any fence, out of any field, and into any garden. Kids love gardens. Sister is eating the green beans. Brother likes cabbage. When they are chased out of the garden, they start pulling down the clothes. Kids are clever and full of fun, but oh, it can be a terrible nuisance. The cows don't like to be fenced in either. They don't jump out or butt out. They lean out. Cows are stubborn. They lean their way right through a barbed wire fence, barbs and all. This makes everyone angry. The fence has to be repaired. Those cows. When the cows are loose, they wander heavily in all directions, always in a hurry. They trample the corn in the fields. They trample the vegetables in the garden. They tear up the lawn and leave cow pies in the driveway. Cows are very valuable, but they can be a nuisance too. They cause the neighbors to call up and complain. Good neighbors are valuable and well-loved. These dogs are good neighbors. They do valuable things. This dog is a good watchdog. His name is Lothar. This dog is a good companion. Her name is Duchess. This dog is a good playmate. His name is El Pupo. This dog is a good mother dog. Her name is Poppy. Other dogs are foolish dogs who do useless, foolish things. These dogs aren't around anymore. This dog chased cars and was run over. His name was Canny. This dog bit people. Now she lives in a kennel. Her name is Biscuit. This dog killed sheep and had to be put away, as the saying goes. His name was Argos. This dog snapped at children and wet on beds. He is not around anymore either. His name was Sweeney. This dog ran away from home and went to live with someone else. No one can remember his name. Pigs only look foolish. They have funny eyes and crazy tails, but they are said to be the cleverest of all animals. Pigs are sometimes hogs, and they are always hungry. Here's a piglet named Pearl. Pearl was raised in an old playpen. She grew up quickly. Now Pearl lives in a pig pen and has piglets of her own. She is a good mother to them. Other neighbors live in swamps and fields on the farm on Maple Hill. It is not easy to get to know them, but they let themselves be seen now and then. You can tell when they have paid a visit. They get hungry too. A raccoon comes at night and takes his share of the harvest corn, which is probably only fair. Some neighbors would be loved better somewhere else. Woodchucks dig big holes in the pastures. They hurry into them when the dogs are around. Voles tunnel in the grass and moles tunnel in holes. The cats can catch them because cats are patient and wait for them to come out. Chipmunks hide in the stone walls. They are peaceful little creatures, but the cats wait for them to come out too. A skunk is walking by. Skunks don't hurry or hide. The dogs and cats pretend not to notice them. It is best not to. All sorts of bugs and beetles and bees live around the farm, especially wasps. Birds visit the bird feeder in the wintertime. Gray squirrels come there too. Squirrels love bird feed. Red squirrels store things in the attic. They drop nuts down between the walls at night, keeping everyone awake. Frogs and fish and turtles live in the pond. A muskrat lives there too. A toad with golden eyes lives near the pump. He never hides either. No one bothers toads. They taste terrible. Moths hang around the outside light at night. A possum is another night neighbor. He rattles the dog pans, looking for leftovers. More neighbors live close by. Field mice are on the pantry shelves. Why won't they stay in the fields? A spider is spinning a web in the basement. An old land tortoise is moving his house to another part of the land. Ants live in an anthill in the pasture. Sometimes they visit the garbage can. A mother skunk is walking with her babies. Please do not notice her. Worms live in the apples. A grass snake lives in the grass. Rabbits are interested in the garden. You must plant enough lettuce for the neighbors. That is, if you like salad. A hawk flies over the barnyard in the wintertime. He is looking for someone to eat. He is hungry too. Woodpeckers are pecking on the mailbox post. A cricket is wintering in the back of the refrigerator. No one has ever seen the porcupine, but he lives here all right. He leaves footprints in the snow. In a quiet corner of an overgrown field, where the snow lies deepest and the oak trees hold their leaves all winter, a beloved hound named John lies buried. 3 cats are buried here. Webster, the first Siamese, a dear, dirty, white cat named Crook, who stole from the table, and Fat Boy, who looked like Max. In this quiet corner, the best wildflowers grow, and the first peepers are heard in the spring, even before the snow melts. Here, owls call from the treetops in the early morning, and the irreverent crows hold their noisy conversations. Here, the mother deer has her fawn, and the migrating geese come to rest. It is here that the fox is safe from the hunters. If you are intrigued, by the way, by the animals, by those 3 cats, they are the subject of a book called An Owl and 3 Pussycats, which is by the same team. And another one of the Maple Hill Farm books. But for now, the animals that were, the animals that are, and the animals that will be bring joy, laughter, and life to the lives of the people who live in a house that needs painting at the end of a road full of holes. Maple Hill Farm. That's the end of that book. What have I got left? I'm through about more than half of the stack that I brought out. Let's see. A lot of these are also longer than I expected them to be, so there's that. Oh, I'm going to read this one. This is one of my very favorites, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is a book called Everyone Knows What a Dragon Looks Like. It's written by Jay Williams. It's illustrated by Mercer Mayer, who is best known for the Little Critter books, but who is an unbelievably lush illustrator. The first few pages are wordless, so I'm just going to keep showing you those because, again, the art is gorgeous, and yeah. The city of Wu was perched on a hill between two mountains. On one side of it were the great plains of the north, where the wild horsemen lived. On the other side was the land of China. A lad named Han was the gate sweeper of the city. He had no mother or father, and he was very poor. He lived in a tiny hut next to the gate, and his job was to sweep the road that ran through the gate. For this, he was given 1 bowl of rice and 1 cup of wine every day, and that was all he had. But he was cheerful, kind-hearted, and friendly, and when he swept the road, he whistled. Everyone who went in or out of the city had a merry word from him, for that was all he had to give. One day, a messenger came racing along the road from the north. He said to Han, "Take me to the ruler of the city." Han led him to the palace of the Mandarin, the great lord whose name was Jade Tiger. The messenger cried, "Beware! The wild horsemen of the north are coming, a great army of them. They mean to destroy the city of Wu and bring war into the land of China." The Mandarin stroked his beard. Then he called together his counselors. They were the leader of the merchants, the captain of the army, the wisest of the wise men, and the chief of the workmen. "What shall we do?" asked the Mandarin. "There are 4 things we can do," answered the wise man. "First, we can fight." "Our army is small," said the captain. "They know how to shout loudly, how to make threatening leaps, and how to wave their swords in the bravest possible way, but they don't know much about fighting." "Well, then, secondly, we can run away from the city," said the wise man. "If we run into the land of China, the emperor will cut off our heads," said the leader of the merchants. "Thirdly," said the wise man, "we can surrender." "If we surrender, the wild horsemen will cut off our heads," remarked the chief workman. "What is the 4th thing?" asked the Mandarin. The wise man shrugged. "We can pray to the great cloud dragon to help us." "That seems most practical," said the Mandarin. So the gongs were beaten, and the smoke of sweet incense rose up while everyone in the city prayed. The next morning, as Han was sweeping the road under the gate, a small, fat man came walking up the hill. He had a long white beard and a shiny bald head, and he leaned on a long staff. "Good morning," he said. Han bowed. "I hope your honorable stomach is happy, sir," he replied politely. "Will you take me to the ruler of the city?" asked the little fat man. "I'll take you to him," said Han, "but he is very busy this morning. We are expecting the enemy, and the Mandarin is praying to the great cloud dragon for help." "I know," said the little man. "I am a dragon." Han opened his eyes very wide. "You don't look like one," he said. "How do you know?" asked the little man. "Have you ever seen one?" "No," said Han. "Now that you mention it, I haven't." "Well, then." There they are. "Well, then," said Han. "Please come this way, honorable dragon." He led the little fat man to the palace. There sat the Mandarin with his counselors. They had just finished a huge bowl of rice and 6 dozen duck eggs for breakfast, and they were drinking their tea. The Mandarin looked at the little fat man with a frown. Who is this person, and why have you brought him here? He asked Han. Sir, said Han, he is a dragon. Don't be ridiculous, said the Mandarin. He is a fat man who is tracking dirt on my fine carpets. What do you want here, old man? I have come to help you, said the little fat man. But if you want a dragon to help you, you must treat him with courtesy. I have come a long, weary way. Give me something to eat, something to drink, and speak to me politely, and I will save the city. Now look here, said the Mandarin. Everybody knows what dragons look like. They are proud lords of the sky. They wear gold and purple silk. They look like mandarins. How do you know? Asked the little man. Have you ever seen one? Certainly not, said the Mandarin, but everyone knows what they look like. Isn't that true, Captain? The captain of the army sat up straight, brushing grains of rice from his uniform. Not at all, said he. Everyone knows that dragons are fierce and brave like warriors. The sight of them is like the sound of trumpets. They look like captains of the army. Nonsense, interrupted the leader of the merchants. Dragons are rich and splendid. They are as comfortable as a pocketful of money. They look like merchants. Everyone knows that. The chief of the workmen put in, You are wrong. Everyone knows that dragons are strong and tough. Nothing is too hard for them to do. They look like workmen. The wisest of the wise men pushed his glasses up on his forehead. The one thing that is known, and indeed I can show it to you in 47 books, is that dragons are the wisest of all creatures, he said. Therefore, they must look like wise men. I think we know better. At that moment, they heard screams and yells from outside. A messenger came running into the palace. My lords, he shouted, the enemy is coming. The wild horsemen are riding across the plain toward the city gates. What shall we do? Everyone rushed out to look away. Far away, but coming closer every second, was the dark mass of horsemen. Dust rose high from their horses' hooves, and their swords and spears twinkled in the sunlight. If you treat me with courtesy, he said, I will save. The little fat man stood quietly, leaning on his staff. If you treat me with courtesy, he said, I will save the city. Give me something to eat and something to drink, and speak to me politely. That is the only way to get a dragon to help you. Piffle and poffle, cried the Mandarin. You are not a dragon. Everyone can see you are only a dusty old wanderer. We have no time to give you free meals or to talk politely. Get out of the way. There's the wanderer. And then the incoming tide of wild horsemen. And he ran home to the palace and crawled under the bed where he lay shivering. My gallant army, commanded the captain, follow me. He turned and ran to the barracks, and all his soldiers followed him. They all hid under their beds and lay there, shaking. The merchant, the wise man, and the chief of the workmen flew to their own houses, and all the people hurried after them. In a few minutes, the streets were empty except for Han and the little fat old man. Well, said Han, I don't think we have much time. The enemy will be here soon. I don't know whether you are a dragon or not, but if you are hungry and thirsty, please do me the honor of coming into my humble house. With a low bow, he showed the old man the way into his tiny hut. There he gave him the bowl of rice and the cup of wine, which were all he had. The old man ate and drank, then he stood up. I don't think much of the people of Wu, he said, but for your sake, I will save the city. He went out to the gate. The wild horsemen were very close. They wore fur caps and the skins of tigers. They shot arrows at the city as they rode hard on their shaggy horses. The little fat man puffed out his cheeks. He blew a long breath. The sky grew dark, and lightning sizzled from the clouds to the earth. A great wind arose. It caught the wild horsemen and blew them far and wide. Those who escaped turned and galloped madly away through the storm. The sky cleared. The sun shone again. The plain was empty. The little fat man said, Now I will show you what a dragon looks like. He sprang up into the air, and his form changed. He grew taller than the tallest tree, taller than the tallest tower. He was the color of sunset shining through rain. Scales covered him, scattering light. His claws and teeth glinted like diamonds. His eyes were noble, like those of a proud horse. He was more beautiful and more frightening than anything Han had ever seen. He flew high, roaring, and vanished into the deep sky. Han gave a long sigh and went to tell the Mandarin what had happened. This is always my favorite picture, the old man's transformation into the dragon. And then the dragon in the sky. The people of the city crowded around to hear the tale. They could see for themselves that the enemy had vanished. They cheered Han, pinned medals on him, gave him many gold pieces, and from that day on called him the honorable defender of the city. But best of all, said the Mandarin, we know what a dragon looks like. He looks like a small, fat, bald old man. And I believe that that is the end. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to drink some soda. Wow, I've been doing this for a little over 2 hours. I'm not quite sure how much longer I'm going to go. At least maybe 2 more books. We'll see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more that I pulled out, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get through quite all of those. But I'll do at least a few more. And then at some point I should probably eat breakfast since it's like 4 p.m. But first, since we've been mostly reading books from my childhood, I'm going to go for a slightly more modern one. This is The Day I Swapped My Dad for 2 Goldfish by Neil Gaiman and Dave McKeown. One day, my mom went out and left me at home with just my little sister and my dad. My dad sat in front of the television reading his newspaper. My dad doesn't pay much attention to anything when he's reading his newspaper. My little sister and I played in the garden. My sister played with her Barbie dolls, and I played at putting mud down my sister's neck. My friend Nathan came over to my house. He had a glass bowl with him. There was something in the glass bowl. What's that? I said. 2 goldfish, he said. They're called Sonny and Beanie. Aren't they neat? They were pretty neat. I'll swap you them, I said. What for? Asked Nathan. We went up to my bedroom. My little sister tagged along. I showed Nathan my old Transformer robots and my baseball cards and my books. I showed her my old punching bag and my penny whistle that Mommy said made her headache when I blew it. I showed her my old spaceship that didn't float in the bath anymore and the puppet with the tangled strings, and I even showed him Clowny, my clown that I sleep with. And every time I showed him something, Nathan said, no. We went downstairs. Isn't there anything you would swap for the goldfish? I asked Nathan. They were very nice goldfish. They were ready gold, and they swam backwards and forwards in their bowl. No, said Nathan. Not Transformer robots or baseball cards or books or a punching bag or a penny whistle, even if it does make your mom's headache, or a spaceship or a puppet or even that old Clowny. I thought for a bit. Some people have great ideas maybe once or twice in their life, and then they discover electricity or fire or outer space or something. I mean, the kind of brilliant ideas that change the whole world. Some people never have them at all. I get them 2 or 3 times a week. I'll swap you my dad, I said. Uh-oh, said my little sister. That's not a fair swap, said Nathan. I've got 2 goldfish and you've only got 1 dad. He's bigger than your goldfish, though, I pointed out. He is as big as 100 goldfish. Can he swim? Asked Nathan. Better than a goldfish, I told Nathan. Liar, said my little sister. He splashes and splashes the swimming pool. Okay, said Nathan. He gave me the 2 goldfish. He gave me the 2 goldfish in the goldfish bowl and took my dad away with him. I watched the goldfish for a while. You'll get into big trouble when Mommy gets home, said my little sister. Won't. You'll see, said my little sister. When my mother came home, I said, Mom, can we buy some goldfish food? If we have to, dear, said my mother. Where's your father? Come see my goldfish, I said. Aren't they pretty? Very pretty, dear, said my mother. Said my little sister. Don't speak with your mouth full, darling, said my mother. She shouted up the stairs. She knocked on the door of the bathroom. She called out into the garden. My father didn't reply. That's very odd, said my mother. Said my little sister. Don't pay attention to her, I said. Come and look at my goldfish. But my mother untied my little sister and took the sock out of her mouth. Do you know where your father is? My mother asked. My little sister pointed at me. He swapped into his friend Nathan for those 2 goldfish. My mother looked at me sharply. Young man, she said. Is this true? She only calls me young man if she's very, very mad. Yes, I said. Right, said my mother, and she picked up the bowl of goldfish and handed it to me. You can take these goldfish over to Nathan this minute, and don't you come back without your father. I told you so, said my little sister. And you can go with him, said my mother. Fancy allowing your brother to swap your father for 2 goldfish in a bowl. The very idea. So we went over to Nathan's house. He only lives over the road. I knocked on the door. Nathan's mother came out. Is Nathan here? I asked. Where did you get those goldfish? She asked me. They were a present to Nathan from his Aunt Violet. I swapped them, I said. And now I have to swap them back again. She sent Nathan out to talk to me. Here are your goldfish, I told him. Thank you, said Nathan. Now can I have my dad back, please? Well, said Nathan, yes and no. Uh-oh, said my little sister. What's that supposed to mean? I asked Nathan. Follow me, he said. We went upstairs to Nathan's bedroom. It was even messier than my bedroom. Nathan had an electric guitar, a big white one. I swapped this electric guitar with Vashti Singh, he said. Nathan, I said to him, what did you swap to Vashti so she would give you her electric guitar? If you get off me, I will tell you, he said. I got off him. I swapped her your dad, he said. Humph, I said. Humph, said my little sister. Well, he wasn't very exciting, said Nathan. All he did was read the paper. I took the guitar and we walked over to Vashti's house. I could be a rock and roll star, I said to my sister. You could be an idiot, said my sister to me. I rang Vashti's doorbell. I've got your guitar for you, I said to Vashti. Vashti giggled. All Vashti's sisters giggled too. Can I have my dad back, please? They giggled again. Please, Vashti, said my little sister. Vashti shrugged her shoulders. Wait here, she said. She took the guitar away from me. When she came back, she was carrying a gorilla mask. Oh, no, I said. Oh, no, said my little sister. I swapped your dad with Blinky, said Vashti. Blinky had this really good gorilla mask. Where's Blinky's house? I asked Vashti. She told me how to get there. It was going to be a long walk. We set off. That is a really good gorilla mask. Can I put on the gorilla mask? Asked my little sister. Okay, I said. She put on the gorilla mask. When are you going to put it on? I said. Then I laughed and laughed and laughed. When are you going to put on the gorilla mask? My little sister took off the gorilla mask. We walked some more. I put on the gorilla mask. My sister went over to a policeman. Help, quick, shouted my sister. That gorilla is escaping from the zoo. The policeman ran over and caught me. He made me take the mat off the mask. Then he told me off. He would have told my sister off, only she did her innocent little girl face, so he didn't. It's not fair. Hee hee, said my sister. Watch it, I told her. Just watch it. That's all. Blinky had a very big house. We went up to the front and rang the bell. The butler came out. Can we speak to Blinky? I said to the butler. Whom shall I say is calling? Said the butler. Me, I said. And me, said my little sister. Blinky came down the big stairs. He looked very pleased to see the gorilla mask. Are you bringing it back? He asked. Yes, we are, I told him. Blinky made the butler give us ginger beer. I liked it, even though the bubbles tickled my nose. My sister made a face. Now, I asked when I finished the ginger beer, where's my dad? Ah, said Blinky. He went away again around the side of the house. This is Galveston, said Blinky when he came back. Galveston was a fat white rabbit with one black ear. Galveston's what I swapped your father for, said Blinky. I gave him the gorilla mask. He gave me Galveston and a map he drew of how to get to Patty's house. I'd never walked so far in my life. I like that one of the landmarks on the map is a cat later on the next page. I think ginger beer is the most horrible thing in the world, said my sister. Worse than boiled beets, I asked her. No, she said, not that bad. While we walked, Galveston the rabbit sat in my arms and made its nose go waffly. My sister tried to make her nose go as waffly as Galveston's, but she couldn't do it. Here's the rest of the map, and there's the cat, the landmark cat over here. And as if summoned, here comes my cat to squawk at us. Hi, Bella. I knocked on the door of Patty's house. Galveston, shouted Patty. Galveston, shouted Patty's mother and father. Galveston, shouted Patty's brothers. Galveston, shouted the Queen of Melanesia, who was there on a visit. She has a really good hat. They took the rabbit away from us and fussed over it and gave it some lettuce. Patty took my hand. Thank you for bringing Galveston back, she said. We missed it. We walked into the back garden. There was a little rabbit hutch there, and next to the rabbit hutch was a little run with chicken wire all around it. My dad sat on the grass in the chicken wire run, reading his newspaper and eating a carrot. He looked a bit lonely, and he had grass all over his trousers. "Come on, Dad," I said, and I opened the gate in the chicken wire. My dad crawled through the gate on his hands and knees. "He's not a very good rabbit," said Patty. "He's not meant to be," I said. "He's a very good daddy." "He can keep the carrot," she said. "Thanks for bringing back Galveston." "No problem," I said. "See ya." "You like her," said my little sister. "I could tell. I'm going to tell everyone at school." Last week, my little sister told everyone at school that I was adopted. The week before, she told everyone at school that I was a space alien pretending to be me. I'll tell everyone that you're secretly fat. "Children," said my father, and he carried on eating his carrot and reading his paper until we got home. When we got home, my mother said things like, "Just look at the state of him," and she made him go and have a bath, and she put all his clothes into the washing. While my dad was in the bath, my mother told me off, and when she'd finished telling me off, she made me promise, cross my heart, that I would never, ever swap my dad for anything ever, ever again. And I promised, so I won't. But I never promised anything about my little sister. And that is the end of that. We're going to do one more. And man, so many good choices. I think I'm going to go for The Night Flight. This is by Joanne Ryder. It's illustrated by Amy Schwartz. And it's another very old favorite. One bright summer evening, Anna played in the park. She sat on the back of Alexander, the old stone lion, and fed supper bread to the pigeons who landed on Alexander's ears. She dipped the long, thin crusts into the pond, waiting while the goldfish swam closer and closer, until she saw the park lamps glowing and knew it was time to go home. Move a little closer so you can see the pictures better. Anna ran past the rows of dark houses till she saw her home in the grayness and someone in a red sweater waving at her from the stoop. "They almost came today," Anna told Mama. "The fish almost took the bread from my hand." From her window, Anna heard the sparrows calling goodnight to each other, calling from the 3 tall trees nobody could climb. She watched the shadows creep up the tall buildings and hide the trees, the street and the city in the dark, in the night. Inside it was still bright. Then Papa turned out the lamp, so it was night inside and outside. Downstairs, the musician began to play a smooth, sweet night song that drifted into Anna's room. Someone upstairs heard it too and began to dance. In the dark, Anna listened to the dance on her ceiling till she closed her eyes and dreamed of night, of flying through the open window into the night outside. Ooh, Anna sighed, floating down past the windows. down past her sleeping house till her toes touched the cool, hard sidewalk. Up, she thought, and she spread her arms, flying higher and higher and higher till she glided like a wild night bird over the quiet, empty streets. How easy, she cried. How easy it is to fly. The air tickled her arms and face, and the leaves of the 3 tall trees tickled her toes. All by herself, Anna flew through the night between the stars and the city. She soared over the wide, flat rooftops where pigeons sat resting in rows, nodding and winking at her. Come, she called, and up flew the tipplers and the tumblers, up flew the fast-flying homers till the sky was full of pigeons, racing in fast, fast circles. Then Anna shouted, "Follow me!" And she led the flock, swooping and gliding behind her to the park and the pond. Anna dipped low over the water, looking down at the goldfish, who looked up at her. I'm thirsty, said Anna. Flying makes me thirsty. So she stopped for a long, cool drink. A black-tailed fish swam near and said, Swimming makes me hungry. Oh, sighed Anna, and I have no bread. The other fish came closer now, whispering softly to her, telling her their names, Flicker and Tassel and Billy Roundbottom. Suddenly, the pigeons stopped drinking and flew up into the blue-black sky. Goodbye, called the fish, and they swam to the bottom of the pond. Something's frightened them, thought Anna, but it wasn't me. There was no one in the park now. No one sitting on the benches and no one jogging around the pond. Along the paths, the park lamps made small circles of light. Anna stood in one of the circles and looked out into the blackness beyond. She felt something stir behind her, and she turned to see what had chased everyone away. It was Alexander, real and wild, running down the path toward her. Hello, Anna, said the old lion. Anna ran to meet him and threw her arms around his large, fluffy head. Climb up, said Alexander, and they rode together past things that rustled in the bushes. Crocodiles, Anna whispered. Lift up your feet, said the lion. The trees grew thick, and they rode under creatures that sighed from the branches and snatched at Anna's hair. Monkeys, called Alexander. Duck, Anna. At the end of the trees, they rode through grass taller than they. Is this all in the park? Anna asked. Yes, said the lion, when you're with me. And he took her where the water tumbled down and down and down. This is my secret place, the lion, and he began to roar and roar. But all Anna could hear was the waterfall's voice roaring louder, now, 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 now. Now, whispered the lion in her ear. It's time to go home. They rode back faster and faster until Anna let go and leaped into the air. "Look, Alexander," she cried, and the lion watched her fly up toward the stars and the moon. "Day, day, day," shouted the sun, leaping through the window, catching Anna asleep and waking her. "I flew," she whispered. "I really flew." And she sat in bed, remembering how it felt to fly, remembering a sky full of pigeons and a lion roaring by a waterfall. Then in came Mama with a good morning hug and a good morning kiss and a piggyback ride all the way to breakfast. And after breakfast, Anna ran to the park, through the people and the pigeons, past the old stone lion sleeping quietly to the wide, bright pond. And when she called their names, the goldfish came and nibbled the crusts right from her hand. And that is the end of the night flight. And I think the end of this live streaming session. I'll save this up on YouTube, so if you need or want to come back or hear any of the stories and revisit it, you're welcome to do that. Maybe I'll put in timestamps. I don't know. They're all there. Thank you for being here today. This is, I think, maybe not a day that anyone should have to sit through alone. And remember that no matter how rough things get, we can always and we will always find ways to push back. And there will always be people telling stories and making beautiful things and inspiring each other to keep going and proving over and over again that there's stuff worth going forward for. I love you. Take care. Take care of each other.